Welcome to our very first edition of the ASAM webinar series, Fun with Standards. Today I have with me Andreas Biehn, who is product owner of VTDX, and Gordon Köfner, who is product manager for VTDX and non-X at Hexagon Manufacturing Intelligence. Hexagon has been an ASAM member since 2018, and they have actively contributed to our standards OpenDRIVE, OpenSCENARIO, and OpenCRG. Andreas has already been working on these standards long before they were transferred to ASAM, and Gordon is involved in making sure they work in their software. Tell us a little bit about your personal journey with the standards you helped create and implement. Who wants to start?
Yeah, let me start. So, thanks for having us, Marius. I started back in 2013 at Vires, now part of Hexagon, and I think the standards OpenDRIVE and OpenDRIVE and OpenCRG were already well established at that time. OpenSCENARIO started in 2014, more like an idea of industry specialists, and really gained speed with the research projects Pegasus and Enable S3. Pegasus, a German research project dealing with the verification of autonomous driving. Same with Enable S3, but on European level. So in Pegasus and Enable S3, the OpenSCENARIO format was used as a scenario format for automotive simulations. I think it was at that time where we started to write this standard we started actually with a mind map. And my first task was then to transfer this mind map to a XSD file, so an XML schema file. I did this manual in a text editor, and this was then the first specification of OpenSCENARIO.
Perfect. And you had the fun of implementing all of this, didn't you?
Partially. So in the past, I joined relatively late, actually. In, I think, 2017, was when I joined Hexagon. I started to work on what we now call classic VTD. And I had the pleasure of working with some of the code that Andreas created to work with OSI standard, for instance.
If you meet someone and you have to explain what all of these three standards, OpenDRIVE, OpenSCENARIO, and ASAM OpenCRG, what they mean, and you have to explain it to a third person who is not involved in this, what would be your elevator pitch?
So what we see on the customer side for automotive OEMs and tier ones is that they're using a multitude of tools and they're working with a fragmented tool landscape. And in order for that to work, you don't want to spend a lot of time on integrating these different tools, and you want to make sure that the data between the tools is comparable. And that the only way to make that happen in a sensible way is to use standards, in my opinion.
From a product management perspective, how much do standards and your involvement in their development support this task?
My role as a product manager is, of course, to ensure that the product is successful at the first perspective, but also to ensure that our customers are successful with our product. Otherwise, why would you use it, right? And the standards help us to achieve this task by enabling us to embed our simulation tool, our environment simulation software, in a larger workflow that the customers will usually implement, especially with the complexity of ADAS systems today. And to ensure that our results are comparable also to other tools on the market.
So would you say that supporting standards is one of your USPs in your products?
Yes, definitely. So I believe that standards are a part of our heritage. They always have been, and there's no way around these being a part of our USP in the future.
What's the opinion of the product owner on that?
Since we are now supporting OpenDRIVE and OpenSCENARIO, also ASAM OpenCRG natively in our new generation of our simulation product, I think it's really a key factor, a USP, and it really helps us to leverage our customer use cases.
ASAM OpenDRIVE, OpenCRG, and ASAM OpenSCENARIO emerged from your company. And you, Andreas, you have written the very first lines of OpenSCENARIO. How does it feel to see this early effort becoming an industry-wide standard?
Well, for sure, this makes me very proud, especially to see that not only tool manufacturers are using the standard, but also really the big OEM companies. and I had the chance to discuss with them in those projects. So this is really great to see what happened to those standards. And it was always a big pleasure to work with the project groups. We always had really good collaboration in them with OEMs, with tier ones, with other tool vendors, also with competition. But ASAM made that possible, and I'm really proud of it. I mean, I'm still working with the standards basically on a daily basis.
What was your company's motivation to transfer the standards to ASAM?
I think the value we gained was acceptance. We had a lot of contribution from other partners, and this was partners who did not contribute before to the standard. With this, the standard got better and better over time, and as we are supporting it, as I said before, natively in our product, it also makes our product better and better. And I think we got a lot of value back.
OpenSCENARIO was so good, the first version, that we did another one called OpenSCENARIO 2. We solved the problem of the naming. So we have OpenSCENARIO XML, we have OpenSCENARIO DSL. Meanwhile, Andreas, you started OpenSCENARIO XML, and now I'm asking Gordon, what's your take on OpenSCENARIO DSL?
What I understand from DSL, it is more a descriptive language than a deterministic set of events and maneuvers and procedures as you have in the regular scenario XML, which of course enables you to meet demands for different use cases. So this would allow you to describe scenarios in a more generic way. So saying you want to simulate a wealth of lane change maneuvers, for instance, then with DSL you can get to that point quicker. However, if you want to simulate a very specific set of instructions, for instance, if you're looking at Euro NCAP, there's very specific scenarios that you need to fulfill. Then OpenSCENARIO XML, from my perspective, would be the more useful standard in that case. In the end, I think both serve different use cases, both have their place, and we just need to make sure that they are that with DSL there's also some level of validation and the reference implementation, allowing for interoperability as well, to ensure that different tools have some level of comparability.
In the Pegasus project, we used a lot the terminology of logical, abstract, and concrete scenarios. So the right order is abstract is the highest level of abstraction, logical, and then concrete. And for logical and concrete scenarios, I think there is no way around using OpenSCENARIO XML, because that's where you can really say, I want to have whatever lane change to the right with a 3-second duration. As you said, Gordon, both standards have their use cases, but as we are more on the deterministic scenario execution side with our products, we are happy that we can use something like OpenSCENARIO XML, because that's the only standard, in my point of view, that allows you to have deterministic repeatable scenarios.
At ASAM, and I think we briefly touched on this already, we are sometimes confronted in our regional meetings, general assemblies, and whatever we have, that different implementations of ASAM standards exist, and ASAM standards may be interpreted differently, especially in the domain of OpenX, as we call it. What's your take on this topic? What's your experience?
Yeah, if I think about a standard that is very well defined, like OpenDRIVE, ASAM OpenDRIVE, sorry, we think about a geometrical mathematical definition of the road, and that's actually there's not a lot of room of interpretation. But if I think about that there are clothoids inside, then we already know that there is a different way of interpreting clothoids. So we have to accept a certain level of interpretation room for the tool vendors or for the users of those standards. For OpenSCENARIO, it might be even more. The important thing is that we are not talking about 50% comparability, and also not about 100, because that's probably never reachable, but that we have something like 90 or 95% as a goal.
Can you expect files like from OpenSCENARIO to be executed identically on different platforms?
Yeah, what is identically? If you really mean identically, then no, never. Will not be possible. If I think about OpenSCENARIO, we have in OpenSCENARIO three levels of abstraction. Right, you can just use a driver model. The scenario is very simple. Then you just say activate controller driver model, and then you can watch what happens. And you could expect that, for example, a lane change will happen. If you really want that lane change to happen, the next level would be actions and conditions. So that this is actually the main ingredients of OpenSCENARIO XML, actions and conditions inside stories and storyboards. Then you can be sure that this lane change will happen. You can also be sure that it will happen in a sine shape with a 3 seconds duration, for example. But you still cannot be sure that you will get exact the same points on that, let's say, lane change trajectory. That brings us to the next level. This would be trajectories. If you use trajectories with 4 dimensions, so position and orientation plus time, you will get the almost exact same results, but that costs you a lot of flexibility in creating those scenarios, and you have to put a lot of effort in the creation. So I think with this action and condition concept, we have the right concept to have, like, let's say 95% comparability, not 100. That's not possible, but this should definitely be enough to have really comparable scenarios, even across simulation tools.
So the only question is who will provide the reference implementation where the 95% will be measured.
Exactly, yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, if you look at other standards, I mean, such as if you're looking at the history of OpenGL and so on from the Kronos group, there's a lot of reference implementations there available for the different vendors of, in this case, GPUs to actually provide functional working drivers, if you will. And I believe we should do a similar thing. So we need to have some level of reference implementation, some level of validation that can then provide some security also to the customers.
After this deep dive into the technicalities of the standards, let's look a little bit more at the industry and let's go a little bit higher level. How has the testing of ADAS and automated driving function changed over the past years, and what changes and challenges have you experienced?
Yeah, so a lot has changed in the past, I would say 10 years, probably even longer than that, in the ADAS AD industry. And what you can definitely see is that the ADAS systems are becoming more and more complex, and there's more and more ADAS systems being added to cars. Now with the modern ADAS systems, we see more and more companies starting to move to software-based testing, simulation-based testing, so they can test earlier on in the development cycle, even before hardware prototypes are available, to ensure that they can actually deliver quality software on time. Right? They don't want to delay their start of production. If you start testing software too late, you start finding bugs, you automatically delay the launch of your vehicle, or you take into account some quality issues. So they've started moving to this software-based testing, often in the cloud, which provides more scalability, allows you to test on a continuous basis, which is also what we want to support with VTDX. And this is how I believe the current trend will continue, and this will only go up. So we need to test more and more and continuously.
How do the ASAM standards and our projects support this shift in the development?
Yeah, Gordon, you were talking about manufacturers no longer doing things on the road or on hardware benches, but in the cloud, software-based. And my first thought was here that they have to follow certain standards, not the standards for file formats or scenarios or whatever, but they have to ensure that the functions they are creating are safe. Yeah. So we all know the famous safety standards for the automotive area, and what we see is that our customers need to fulfill those requirements, and they are especially using standards for files, for scenarios, for open for road networks. OpenDRIVE, OpenSCENARIO, etc. help a lot, because we no longer have to show to a certification authority that's our scenario format, our internal one, that's how we documented it, that's how we tested. We are using OpenSCENARIO, and that's it basically.
In addition to what Andreas just said, I would also add that so of course hill testing is still being done and will continue to be done in the future, and the same goes for vehicle in the loop testing. And standards can also help here to ensure that we can reuse some of the simulation results from the hill, for instance, to re-simulate in the sim and vice versa. So ideally, we have some level of interoperability and comparability also between the different types of testing.
The aspect of mobility is what's changed or what widened the focus in the ASAM vision. Mm-hmm. So we go from automotive to mobility. Mm-hmm. What do you think about this, going beyond automotive?
So mobility includes more than just automotive. It includes logistics. It can include things like robotaxis, trains, and so forth. And I believe that the standards support this pretty well, and actually our product also supports this to a certain degree. Additionally, our visions are actually pretty aligned. So our vision is to empower seamless development of autonomous mobility through virtual worlds, and the ASAM vision enables this.
You have both experience with ASAM projects. Andreas has been fully immersed in one or the other project. So what's your experience with the ASAM projects, and what would you like to have improved?
Yeah, actually, I can really only report positive things. In the standardization projects I were part of, in the OpenSCENARIO standardization project, we always had a very good collaboration within the partners and with the ASAM office. The infrastructure was very good. The process of the organization, the management of events, everything worked quite well. So from my personal experience, and it was not that easy, right? So especially the move from OpenSCENARIO 0.9.1, that was the version I created on my text editor, to a 1.0 version was really a lot of work. But the project group worked quite well. Always also depends a bit on the lead, but we had a very good one here. And actually, I'm happy with the work of ASAM.
And you're always happy with the outcome that you have to implement.
Of course. So I think in some cases, of course, most of it is positive, right? And we see also in terms of dealing with, I think an important aspect of these committees is how to deal with conflict. Of course, there's going to be conflict. You have multiple players from the market in this group, and also, well, on the one hand on the customer side, but also on the tool provider side. And this will, of course, lead to some level of conflict. And how you deal with this conflict, of course, will prescribe how successful the standard can be and how successful the organization is.
Final question. Please provide a single line statement about what ASAM means to you. And the line is not endlessly long, I would like to say.
Well, for me, the work with ASAM means mainly working with interesting people with the common goal of making those standards usable, not only for users, but also for developers, so that they can really implement their tooling and their functions.
So for me, ASAM really means that we have standards that enable us to accelerate our development, that enable us to accelerate the testing of advanced driver assistance systems, but also beyond that. And that will allow us to be interoperable and comparable within the more complex landscape of ADAS testing workflows.
Thank you very much. Very nice. Final words. This is basically the end of our, what we call the Big Bang of our new series, Fun with Standards. And the title is really what we mean with it. We want to make sure that standards are understood. We know about the ecosystem, but mostly we want to have fun here. Everyone is still smiling. And just wait a second, I have something for you. So here we come. As cherished ASAM members, for sure, you get the ASAM Cube, but this one is already filled with sweets and a small pen. So
there it is.
You get all the energy back you put in. Well, you get part of the energy back that you put into this interview. Keep it for later. I don't know. Share with whoever you like. Good. And thank you so much for having been with us. It was a great pleasure, and we're looking forward to the upcoming series of our Fun with Standards webinars. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marius.